landed the drone and I was like, I like this more than I've liked anything ever. And it goes black and the crowd goes nuts. It is like the most chills I've ever had in my life. Casey Neistat's going to teach Dixie how to surf. Like, you got to be there and shoot this. I was like, no way. And you have to think about conflict really broadly. Like, you're not going to face life or death conflict every day.
That's Jack Cook, and you might have noticed him from his daily vlogs on TikTok. He's been vlogging on the app for over 700 consecutive days and amassed over 100,000 followers. On today's episode, we talk about his first camera, his time spent at Auburn University athletics, and how he uses conflict and resolution to keep you hooked on his vlogs. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so that you can be here for all of my conversations with my amazing guests. And you can listen to all these episodes by following The Aaron Dodge Show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Let's get into episode 11 with Jack Cook.
You know, obviously before I even moved out here to LA, I had been seeing your vlogs and...
Oh, really? Before you moved to LA?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think I would probably say... Like a few months. I mean, you're over a year, so...
Yeah, I started in October 2021. When did you move to LA?
I moved to LA in June. So I think springish is when I first came across your vlogs.
Do you remember if it was Coachella?
I don't.
Okay.
Did that go like viral and that kind of kicked it off, or
it was just the first round of videos that ever got like over 1,000 views on anything. Like the day one, I think, of Coachella in 2022 got like 200,000 views or something, which was like the first vlog that I ever made that like did anything. So that was like a weird feeling, but I feel like a lot of that like beginning process came from there. With like people discovering it.
Yeah, I think I just know that it was before I moved to LA, and so I was excited because, you know, on social media these days you're only one DM away, and I was just like, I definitely am gonna DM him and tell him that I'm moving to LA and that we should link up at some point.
But I think the first time we met was at JT's thing that Danny did.
Correct. Yeah, but that was the first time we met. But like, I don't know if I feel like I might have DM'd you before that, and you're like, "Oh yeah, let's make something happen." And then I saw that you were at that event, and I was just like, "Hey, let's link up sometime soon."
Yes.
So, when was like the storytelling first time you picked up a camera? Are you the kind of guy that had the family camcorder that was like meant for family memories, but you stole it and started storytelling with? What's your camera storytelling story?
A little bit. I had cameras when I was pretty young. Like I had like the GoPro Hero 2, like whenever that came out, which was probably when I was like 12 or something like that. And I had a camera when I was in middle school that was like a slow-mo specific camera, so it could shoot like 480 FPS, but it was like terrible quality, but it was still super slow. And I would like take it to middle school with me and like film my friends like doing stuff at like recess. So kind of
like throwing kickballs and stuff, and like seeing how slow they can go,
or like
stuff.
Doing a bouncy ball and like trying to, or like Coke and Mentos at the house on a slow-mo camera when you're 12.
I mean, that is like the bee's knees.
It's no better than that. So I always had cameras when I was young, and didn't really realize that it was something I actually liked until my senior year of high school. My dad wanted to get a drone, and he wanted to get it because he wanted me to figure out how to use it and then film the boat when they went fishing. He was like, this would be fun, let's get a drone. So he got the DJI Phantom 3. That was the first like drone that I ever had, and I was taking footage with it, and I was like, this actually like looks really good. It was like, it was not the GoPro Hero 2 or my shitty slow-mo camera. It was an actual like nice camera. So I took a bunch of footage with the drone around Savannah, and over the course of like 2 weeks, and I was like, I'm just going to make a YouTube video, like compile all this together, put an M83 song over it, like super dramatic, but like I loved it, and I loved making that video. And I had a moment when I was making that video where I was like, I was filming the sunrise at my dock. It was a very picturesque moment, but I like landed the drone, and I had been like shooting this thing for 10 days. And it was like the only thing that I wanted to do all day long was like shoot this, edit it at night, shoot it in the morning again. And that was all I was doing. And I landed the drone, and I was like, I like this more than I've liked anything ever. before.
And
so
sorry, what age are you when you're like this
right
epiphany?
This is right before my senior year in high school.
Okay, cool.
So I was about to turn 18, and I was like, this is what I want to do forever. And so then I got sucked into the rabbit hole of YouTube. I found like Casey Neistat, and I was like, oh, there's like an actual world here that exists. And then that was, my senior year of high school. So then I was like sucked into the world of YouTube. And then right before my freshman year of college, I was like, I want to do video somehow. So then I was going to college, and I was like trying to figure out how to do that. So then I went and decided to shoot sports for Auburn. And, my freshman year, I just got there and I was like, I don't know what to do or how to do this, but I just want to like do video. And I think shooting sports would be really fun. So it took me like a year to finally get an interview to be like a student intern with the football team. And then I was shooting all the football games, shot all the football, basketball. By my senior year, I was doing like all the sports. I was working in-house with the production team there. I like did the intro video for the swimming team that like plays on the Jumbotron before their meets. So that was like where I really learned how to like storytell and make videos then, was at Auburn.
So you came, DJI and you're knew you wanted to storytell, but like, how did you start? Like, what kind of cameras were you handling when you first got in there? And were you just doing like intern type stuff, and you had like an older individual, whether it be an older student or an older employee? Was he kind of showing you what cameras were you guys using, and what were you kind of crushing with out there?
Once I realized that I really wanted to do video, I was like, okay, I actually need to get like a video camera and not just a drone. So I got a Canon 1DX Mark II.
Okay.
Which was like a big investment at the time, and I like got a lens for it, and it was like a big deal. And that was what I went into Auburn with my freshman year. It was like my personal camera.
Got it.
And I'd shot some videos with it that summer. And yeah, that was what I was making stuff with. It took me about a year before I was actually working with the sports teams. Like my freshman year, I just emailed every person that worked in the sports department, and I was like, hey, can I come shoot a soccer game? Can I come shoot a basketball game? So I would go shoot volleyball, women's soccer. We didn't have men's soccer, but men's basketball, women's basketball. Like I just shot anything and everything that they would let me go do. And then used that my sophomore year to go to them and be like, hey, look at all this stuff that I shot my freshman year. I really want to work for the football team. Here's all the stuff that I made. Like, will you guys please hire me? So it was an intern position. In my sophomore year, I was just using my gear. And then I was working for the football team my sophomore year. But by basketball season, there was a guy who ended up being like my mentor, my boss. His name is Jeff. And he sort of, I guess, saw something in me, and he sort of took me under his wing, and I started shooting on a Sony FS5 was what we used there. And he sort of taught me like the real ropes of like how to storytell, how to like really create a narrative out of like what we were shooting. Because up until that point, I was shooting on the 1DX Mark II, and I was just making stuff that like looked cool for Instagram, and that was like about it. And he sort of took me and he was like, there's something deeper that you can actually do here. And like, if you really pay attention to like storytelling, like fundamentals of filmmaking, you can do something that's, a little bit better than like a 15-second cool Instagram shot, Yeah.
That's pretty dope that you understood that like you could give him all of those shots that you got your freshman year and as your pitch as to like why they should hire you. I mean, that's to this day, I like hate resumes. So I actually got my first job as an intern for the New Orleans Hornets because I made a video on my terrible like digital camera.
Nice.
As to why they should hire me. And I put it on a DVD and sent it to New Orleans, and the rest is history. So like, I just love that you took the initiative to like, that's hundreds of hours of you filming all of those different sports teams and going through footage and putting together like a reel that could pitch yourself your sophomore year. So it's awesome.
Flying the drone on my own and just like getting anything and everything I could throughout the whole year. And it was fun. I basically just made one video that was called Welcome to Auburn University. And it was like a 2.5 minute. It was very similar to the video I made about Savannah, but it was just Auburn version. And I included sports and all this stuff. but it wasn't that great. And then I just used that to be like, I love this and I really want to like, you know, learn from you guys and work with you. They were like, okay, we're like, okay with that. I had the interview and they said to me, we'll give you a media pass for this next home game, which was Ole Miss my sophomore year. You make one video for us. If we like it, you can stay for the rest of the season. If you don't, you're done.
Wow.
Yeah. So I made that one video and it was like all slow-mo and it was like to an Odessa song or something. It's just like, you know, what I thought was cool. And they were like, okay, we like it enough to like keep you on for the rest of the season.
Bunch of slow-mo.
Yes. It was like,
just
that
like
was like my
zooming
idea.
in on the kickoff tee and like the
Yes.
and then he
Yes.
catches it. And
Because it was like one thing that I didn't really feel like they were doing really. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll try to do something like slightly different than what they're doing. And like, that'll be like my angle here. I don't know. It's sophomore year college. Thought I was really smart.
we should take some time to look at what I was doing on YouTube during college. I was dancing to the Soldier Boy.
Nice.
And in my college apartment. So
well, we were all doing that in private, you know.
correct. I was just the one putting it up on the internet. Yeah, that's the difference between me and you. Dancing and storytelling. That's about it. Cool. So you progress at Auburn. So I'm guessing that down the road you're getting more responsibilities. Maybe your boss is even saying to you like, you get the whole swimming team season or intro video or stuff like that. Is that when you got more of like the director vibe and you were able to like step back and do a really hefty pre-pro about the shots that you needed and like all of that? Is that kind of where you honed in on that?
Yeah, my sophomore year, he like went out on a limb for me basically and gave me a show that was sponsored by Nissan about the football team. And it was a weekly show that I was the director of. It was literally just me. It was only me making the show once a week. And I would do two different parts. I would do a behind the scenes of some aspect of the football team and then like a whole like recap of game day. So like the first week we did equipment. So I went in with the equipment staff and basically just showed like how they travel gear, like from Auburn to an away game. How does that happen? And so we just showed the whole behind the scenes process of that. And then they take the stuff to the game. And then we showed like 4 minutes of like game day highlights, like the whole thing. And we did that every week. And I was the director of it. And it was like my first big like responsibility. And I wanted it to kind of feel like a vlog in a way, but it was like focused on the football team. And so I made that for the whole season. It's like 12 episodes. And yeah, that was like my first like big responsibility thing that I had as like a director. And I was like in charge of it. I got to decide how it looked. Obviously it went through like approvals and things like that, sure. But like it was coming from me. Like the ideas were coming from me, which was fun. It was the first time that I had ever done anything like that.
In your sophomore year?
Junior year.
Okay.
Junior year, yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a big step, but
especially I was like by yourself. I mean, you have to think about like not only interviews plus B-roll plus like all of your secondary shots, but
it was fun. I would do like all on the fly interviews. So I would just like whoever the subject was, I'd just pull them to the side and be like, tell me who you are, like what you do here. And we just would go with it. And it was very low lift and low production, but at the same time, it was really fun for me. And I learned so much doing it. And so like my boss giving me that, really stepping out on a limb to let a student take over this show that had a sponsor attached to it. So, you know, there's a little bit of liability that he's giving up to me there. And he let me do it. And it ended up being okay. It wasn't like it was a hit show or anything, but it was cool.
Anything else from like Auburn, right? Like before you head out of Auburn that you like took with you that kind of make you who you are from a storyteller today?
Yeah, I think like one of the things that I learned a lot from was we would do videos that would go on the Jumbotron before the games. And I think those videos would be like 2 minutes long, and it's basically you're just like trying to hype up the crowd for the game. It's like right before the team runs out of the tunnel, and those videos had such a science behind them that my boss taught me a lot about. And I think a lot of what he was teaching me then really applies to like everything you do in storytelling. And like at the end of the day, what we were trying to do is have the crowd get a feeling from the video that they were watching, and then them have a reaction. So at some point within the video, usually like a minute and 30 seconds in, you're sort of creating all this momentum to get the crowd there for them to have like a roar reaction. And like there's a science to like set it up and like get them there and then like have a payoff. And that and like having like the audience feel something from what you're making is like a really hard thing to do. And I think it's a fundamental of filmmaking and storytelling. And he was teaching me how to do that then. And it's something that I took a lot with me. It was like having that set up and like we would, you know, if it was like a rivalry game, you want to like show like history of the rivalry and things like this and like build up that tension and the crowd's like getting more into it and they see, you know, maybe like a big play from one of the rivalries back in the day that like makes them even more excited. And then you have like the big hit moment, like the one thing that, you know, is like the climax of the video and then it all drops out. And when that dropout happens, that's when you want the roar to happen. And so you have to like set that up and then to see it live, like you've set all this up and like you're doing this for like the whole week before the game happens. And there's 87,000 people in the stadium like ready to watch this video. And you are like waiting for that moment when it drops out and it goes black and the crowd goes nuts is like the most chills I've ever had in my life.
There's nothing better than a bomb-ass intro video at a sporting event.
That it was amazing. And to have that experience, be like a student and having like that many people watching a video being like, I made this video, and then they all go nuts is like undescribable.
I just love how you said a couple of minutes ago that it's really fun or sometimes really hard to get one person to feel a certain way, but to get 87,000 people, but like collectively if
at the same time,
but if they love it, it's better than like one person liking a video. You have 87,000 people liking a video. And yes. And one thing I will say on this podcast is nothing can touch SEC football.
No.
Like growing up in upstate New York, we used to go in the cold to the Dome. Love Syracuse, love all the history there. But like when I came to the South, like nothing beats a 70-degree October SEC football game.
Nothing like it. It's so fun. That energy, like 30 minutes before kickoff and like the crowd's getting there and like they're introducing the like player lineups as like, oh, and then they do the coin toss and then they go back and the crowd goes crazy because it's about to be kickoff is like.
Then you get the pre-kickoff intro video,
yes.
And you got another opportunity for y'all to get.
I'd be like sitting on the sidelines, like jumping up and down, like here we go.
Then you're like, oh, I should be recording right now. So you're like,
I need to focus.
Let me find a player. Find a player to shoot. All right, so hard transition. Well, how are we talking in Los Angeles? When did you first come?
COVID.
Okay.
Yes, moved into my apartment like June 1, 2020. So this was like peak COVID times.
And sorry, what point have you graduated Auburn at this time?
Yeah, I graduated in May and then moved like 1 month after. So my whole, the second half of my senior semester was online.
Yeah.
This was like, went home for spring break, didn't go back to school.
Got it.
Everything was online, but I graduated and then immediately I was like, I need to be in LA. I can't sit around the house anymore.
Yeah.
Moved here, riots. And then I didn't have any contacts, but I tried to figure out how to get work.
And what was that like trying to grind out those first couple of contacts and first couple of jobs? Yeah,
it was just a lot of cold emails and I was just pitching myself as I'm a filmmaker and I would do basically anything on set for you, anything and everything from PA to if you somehow want a director for something, I can try and be that for you. And I was sending it to anyone who had filmmaking in LA in their Instagram bio or on their website. So I was just sending email after email after email. It was probably a really weird time to be sending emails. I don't think anyone was really trying to hire someone during this time when everyone was, probably getting laid off.
Yeah. And having to wear masks and we didn't know what COVID meant yet. And we didn't know like how close we could be. I was in film production.
So weird.
In COVID too. And it was just a weird time.
Yeah. So I was just sending these emails and sitting in my apartment and trying to get any lead I could. I finally ended up getting in contact with one guy who ran a production company and was basically looking for somebody to kind of help him edit, help him shoot some things that weren't as, I guess, high priority for him. And that was kind of my first job. So I was doing all of the D'Amelio's YouTube videos. It's like Charlie and Dixie's stuff on YouTube. I was like shooting a good bit of it and then editing a lot of it. And that was like my first, I don't know, 6 to 8 months of my first like gig in LA.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because
they
were on, I would say maybe probably still a little bit on the climb, but like
they were very much like, you know, crushing it at this time. Like I remember at some point during this time, Charlie was like passing 100 million on TikTok. So it was like around this time when like her page was like, I don't know, 50 million views a video or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it was definitely very cool as like my first thing in LA to be like around these people because they were, you know, very well connected and doing interesting things all the time.
Yeah.
And my first video that I ever shot with them was Casey Neistat teaching Dixie how to surf. And Casey was like my guy. And so my first thing I ever did in LA was shooting with Casey. So it was like, you know, they sent me the text like, hey, you know, Casey Neistat's going to teach Dixie how to surf. Like, you got to be there and shoot this. I was like, oh, no way. You know, I was like freaking out and got to meet him and he was a super nice guy. And yeah, it was like such a cool, you know, 8-month experience.
That's so sick, especially because you like, even on this podcast, mentioned Casey like 25 minutes ago.
I know,
and you came back and it was the first gig when you got out here.
He was like introduced me to YouTube. Like I didn't know YouTuber was a thing, and then I like watched his videos and I was like, oh, YouTuber is a thing. YouTube is like, I didn't watch any YouTube before that until I saw like one of his vlogs and I was watching it. I was like, who is this guy? This is kind of cool. Like I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
And I was just sucked into the rabbit hole.
The YouTube rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It'll get you.
Yeah.
It'll get you. Who is another YouTuber that you're really into right now?
We talk about him every now and then, but like Tim, who's not on YouTube, but he's on TikTok. He's like somebody I really look up to and have been lucky enough to get in contact with a couple times. Yeah.
Tell me about that. I mean, it just because you guys are top 2 daily vloggers on the platform, is that kind of how it came about, or how did that come about?
A while ago, I made a video and I was like explaining a concept about niche, and we've talked about niche, and I was talking about how niche is overrated, and here's why. And I used Tim as an example because I was like, Tim's created a style of videos. He's not in a niche. He can talk about protein bar reviews or his run routine or his family or his work, and like it doesn't matter. He's created a style. He's not in a niche, and like style is better than niche. It was basically my video. So I used him as an example, tagged him in it. He saw the video and just commented and was like, oh, thank you so much for putting me in this. And then he followed me and I was like, oh, he followed me. That's cool. Like I was like, comments cool, you know, follows great.
Yeah.
And then like maybe a month or two later, he liked one of my videos. I was like, oh, he watched the video, you know? And then I was liking his videos and commenting. We were like commenting back and forth for a little while. And then he sent me a Christmas card this past Christmas. So it was like, we all had this only online relationship up until this point. And then Danny, a friend of ours and a mutual friend of me and Tim, connected us over email maybe like 2 months ago and just said like, you guys both know each other online, but like, you know, introducing you guys over email and like, you guys should talk. And then Tim responded to the email and was like, oh, hey, Jack, like, you know, we should like get on a call at some point. Like this was like right before he went to Tokyo, like a couple months ago. And so then we like set up a call and then hopped on the call and I got to talk to him for like 45 minutes, which was so fun. Cause like we've only, you know, communicated with each other online before, but we like both got on the call. We were like, this is so funny. Like we're getting to like talk together, and like there's a lot of things that he and I do every day that are very similar. Sure. And I think a lot of people maybe like can't relate to those specific things that we do every day when you're like creating daily vlogs on TikTok. And so it was fun to like kind of geek out with him about like some of the details about like our daily schedule and things like that. So we talked for like 45 minutes. It was great. He's a super nice guy. If I ever go to New York, he's like top of my list of somebody I got to go see and hang out with for a little bit.
For somebody that maybe hasn't seen a vlog of yours or, you know, on this podcast and video podcast, like heard of Jack Cook. Tell me a little bit about your vlogging and what your goal was. Like, how did it start? Was it just talk me through it.
Yeah. So I was actually just kind of frustrated when I started the vlog. I was in a very frustrated point in my career. I This was like, September 2021. So I moved, as we talked about, in June 2020 to LA. And I spent the next year, I guess, and a half-ish, just doing all these freelance jobs and was doing anything and everything I could. But I felt like I was more on a hamster wheel than I was like climbing stairs or climbing a ladder, if you will. I just didn't feel like any of my freelance work was like getting me to something or somewhere. I just felt like I was going from one job to the next. And so I did all these different jobs, and like, yes, they like paid my bills, and like I was able to like, eat food and survive, but I didn't feel like it was growing in any sense. And I was just very frustrated, and I was like, I need to have something for myself. And I was saying this to Mallory, my girlfriend, when we were actually in Mexico one time. We like took like 4 days to like go and just be away from things. And it was great. And I was just like talking to her about how frustrated I was. And she was like, that you need to post on TikTok. And I was like, I don't want to do that. That sounds so lame. I want to be a director. I want to do film, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, you have to post on TikTok, like figure it out, basically. And I was like, all right, I'm going to figure it out. So I said, why don't I just do a daily vlog, the things that I've liked so much. And, when I first found out about film, the daily vlog from like Casey, it was what I love so much. And it's kind of what I was trying to create at Auburn, was a vlog. And I was doing vlogs on YouTube myself. And I was like, what if I just take that, put it into a TikTok format, because that's what everyone's watching right now, and just keep it 30 to 60 seconds, and it can just be that, and it can be something that I have for myself that nobody can tell me you have to change this or go edit this or get notes from a client, because I was fed up with it at this point. I had no creative control over what I was doing in the freelance world, and it was leading me nowhere. And so I needed something for myself, so I just started with that. And the first vlog was like 20 seconds long, no voiceover, like a song over it, some B-roll throughout my day, and that was it. But it just made me happy to make something that no one told me I had to do something with it,
Yeah.
So the first 30 were very much like that, and it's been an ever-evolving journey since then. 31 was the first time I ever did a voiceover, and around 250 was the first time I ever made money from it, and then 500 felt like a really big milestone because it was halfway to 1,000, which was somewhere I had thought about getting in my head, and now we're like close to 600. I'm on day 594. So we're super close to 600, and it's just been like this evolving process of like, a lot of it at the beginning was sort of, I'm a freelance filmmaker, director. Here's the behind the scenes of what that life is like. And I sort of rode that for a while, and I started to make a little bit of money from it. And the vlog actually became the thing that was making me more money than my freelance stuff. And that was kind of weird. And that transition happened around like 250, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And I was like, I just really love making the vlog, so I'm just going to keep creating it and doing my freelance stuff on the side almost. And then I kind of hit a point where I was like, this is very recent actually, maybe around like 550, 560, where I was like, if I'm creating this vlog, my identity in my head was always, I'm a director, filmmaker, and this vlog is behind the scenes of what that's like, what that life is like. If I am not doing freelance directing work, then like, what am I creating? Like, what's the substance behind what I'm creating? And I struggled with that for, I don't know, the past like 2 or 3 months or something. And very recently I gotten to the point where I'm like, everything that I've learned since the first time I picked up a camera in middle school, to everything I did at Auburn, to all this freelance work that I did out here in LA, I'm implementing and doing all of those foundational filmmaking techniques in the vlog every day. And it doesn't matter whether or not I'm creating something outside of the vlog. I can create the vlog, and that can be me making films. Sure, it's a 60-second video that exists on TikTok, and it's posted every day, and it's a voiceover, and it's shot on my phone. But nonetheless, I'm doing things on there that is, I'm trying to create stories and introduce characters and have conflict and resolution, all the things that I've learned about filmmaking over the years, I'm implementing and putting into the vlog. And so very recently, I've just gotten to the point where I'm like, I am a content creator, and I make a daily vlog on TikTok, and that is my thing. And that will lead to hopefully more opportunities in the future that I can then funnel back into the vlog and create more things out of it. And like, that will end up being my identity. And I may get to a point down the line where I pivot and do something else, but everything I do in the future from now is no longer in my head going to be, I'm I'm a director and here's the behind the scenes of that. It's I'm a content creator. Like I'm a director, and what I make as a director and filmmaker is a daily vlog on TikTok. I don't do a movie or a TV show, but I make something that's for social media.
I love that.
That was a rant. That was a big rant.
That was an amazing rant because you went through. That's exactly what I wanted out of your answer, because I know just from number one being your friend and number two following a good portion of your 594 days that you have had ebbs and flows during this. I think, and you might even know the number. Your hooks have gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you ran into your counter a couple of days ago, like, ow, that's going to leave a mark. And then good morning. Like your ability to add your hooks, because it's just like you have so much fun stuff going on throughout your day that you know that you have that one sentence that's going to make people keep coming back. So that's number one. Love how that's changed. But number two, I love that you have seen yourself. It's kind of like I don't know, like a bar graph of just like, I'm a director and filmer, and like, these are my behind the scenes vlogs. And now like I am a content creator that posts every single day on TikTok, and I also can freelance and do other things on the side as well. Yeah. And I'm happy for you, because when I first met you a long time ago, I was hoping that it was going to make that flip, because you are you're good at other things. Obviously, you have the portfolio, you've done some great stuff that I've seen, and I know you've done stuff that I haven't seen as well, but I just love this, that it's because you do it so well. I just want you to continue to grow that. And I know we talked about off camera, we talked about some stuff that you have going on with some brands that I'm super jacked up about, because you are living your truth every single day. Yeah. And in 2023, brands want nothing more than creators to continue to be who they are, but they're holding their beverage in their hand, or they're at headquarters, or they're consuming their product, or they're enjoying their product, or they're at their establishment. And so that's just what social media and advertising and influencer marketing is in 2023. And I'm just so happy that you've had that transition. And it's like, we all know it's only up from here. So
it's been really fun. I think overall it's just been like the most interesting story for me to tell. And even though it's me, like I'm the character, I guess, in it, like I have all access to myself, and I give all access to myself to the audience. And like, I'm willing to have it grow and have like an evolution to it over time. But I think as a director, that's sort of always what I was looking for. Like when I was at Auburn, I wanted that all access to tell the story of the football team. And when I was in LA and I was doing different things, I wanted the all access to whatever the subject was and just be able to tell that story. But I just kept running into these roadblocks along the way. And it was really hard for me to like actually break through and tell it the way that I wanted to. And starting to do this vlog actually feels like it fulfills that, of like, I have the all access to me. Nobody's in the way of me telling my own story every day. And I can flesh out what it really means to like create these storylines, like we've talked about, like the fancy gym and like little things like that even though, it may be like boring, in actuality, it has like a lot of meaning to it over time. And I think like as a director, that's what's become the most interesting thing to me, is those like conflict resolutions and like small storylines of like little things that actually grow to have a lot of meaning to people, because I think that's really relatable to a lot of people, is like you have your little things that you love in your life that are the small everyday things. And I think like talking about those things is more interesting to me than like the grandiose story of, I don't know, like sensationalism in a way. I guess that's not as interesting to me as like hunting for a case of all blue eggs, or like even the fact that like, one that's going on right now in my head is the fact that I don't have TSA pre-check. And this is the smallest thing in the world, but it's a very interesting little like story that can be told, is like, I don't have TSA pre-check. I said that in a vlog like 2 weeks ago. I've traveled a couple times since then. And every time at security, I've been like, I really need TSA pre-check. And we're traveling again on Friday. And I'm hoping this week I go and get TSA pre-check. So then on Friday, I could be like, I finally have TSA pre-check. And that sounds like kind of meaningless and stupid, but like just the evolution of like things like that can be created in the videos where you have like the conflict and then the resolution to it. And only the people who are watching the videos would really care about any of that.
I'm sure your comment section about not having TSA pre-check is going bananas.
Well, so many people are like, you got to get TSA pre-check. And then when they see like, I finally got TSA pre-check, they'll be like, yay, you know?
Exactly.
And that's what I want. That feeling of like when it drops out in the stadium and 87,000 people go nuts. It's a lot different than that. But in the same way, you're bringing people along for that story and they finally have that resolution to be like, whew, we got TSA pre-check, whatever, you know?
I think another great storyline that we can talk about, your kind of Easter egg, is what you have right here.
Oh, yes. The Bev.
The Bev.
That is kind of, I guess, the number one.
That would definitely be the number one storyline because, and then also I see on Instagram stories that you're getting Bev posted all the time. So how long you been drinking that? Like you have a fun relationship with the brands. The Bev Lords send
the Bev Lords
send Bevs every once in a while.
They have their own character name. They're the Bev Lords. I am the Bev subject. Yep. Sometimes I can be the Bev Lord, depending on the situation. But yeah, I started drinking these in like 2017. This was something that like I would have with my friends. I never had caffeine, never a coffee person. So me and my friends started drinking these, and none of us ever really drank coffee or caffeine or anything. And then we would go and shoot videos, and we would bring these with us, and we would be like jacked up on this caffeine for the first time in our lives, like creating these videos. And we would be like, we're off the Bev, or like we called these turbs back in the day. We went from yerba mate to yerb to turb.
Okay.
So we would say we were off the turb. That was like our term back in the day for it. And we would create these videos, and then it just sort of became a thing that was like an everyday whatever in my life that I drank them all the time. And then when I was making the vlogs, I put this in it a couple of times, and I was trying to think of like interesting, funny ways to like introduce it and, you know, say like, I'm drinking this drink and I drink it every day and I really like it. That's boring. Like, what can I say to like make it more interesting? So I would just say, don't forget the Bev. And that's something that they say in New York all the time. Like the deli guys will... That's where I got it from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. They like make the sandwich, and then they make the sandwich, and then they say, don't forget the Bev. And I was like, oh, that can be like, you know, I'm not forgetting this Bev every day. So I would say, don't forget the Bev. And I said it like 3 days in a row or something, and then I didn't say it, and I got a bunch of comments like, where's the Bev? And I was like, oh, you guys care about the Bev. This is like vlog 60. Like, I don't know what I'm doing at this point.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I had the Bev today. I just didn't put it in the video, but I'll put it in the video again tomorrow. So then I put it in the next day and the next day and 560 days after that. And it's been just this ongoing thing of like, I don't forget the Bev every day. And I think people maybe not wait for that part in the vlog, but like that part in the vlog is very unique to my content, I guess. So people get like excited about, you know, those small storylines. And since then I've been in contact with the brand, and like we're going to do some work together eventually, and they send me Bevs, and like it's cool, you know. Now it's like it gets to kind of be something out of nothing.
One thing I want to circle back to that you said when you were talking about your vlog, and I know that for other content creators that are going to listen to this, and I struggle with it sometimes too, I don't do enough interesting things in the day to tell my story about that. If somebody says to you, like, because I know I feel that way sometimes as a content creator and a storyteller, but I love that, like, you know, it starts out, you start out without a voiceover, and now you got a voiceover. So I guess if somebody were to say to you, I don't do anything interesting enough, or how do I get started with a daily vlog of that magnitude, what would you say to them?
Well, you know, the first part of that question, if someone says I don't do interesting things enough, I would say, have you ever watched The Office? They do probably the least interesting job of all time. And not that working at a paper company is bad, but like, you know, if you were thinking about making content around it, that's what everyone would say is, I don't have a job that's that interesting. But that show is one of the most interesting and funny shows of all time. But that's because of the way that they tell the story. They introduce characters. Those characters have storylines. You end up rooting for those characters, or you want to see some characters fail, or whatever it is. Everything that you do in your life, whether it's like me doing laundry in the afternoon, that can have conflict and resolution to it, right? Like if you're doing something boring per se in your life, there's always interesting ways to talk about it if you're a good storyteller, right? Like, I'm going to go do laundry, but now I'm out of laundry detergent. Now there's a conflict to it. And then I have to go seek out the detergent and go bring it back. And then now I can do the laundry. Or if I'm making breakfast, that can maybe seem like boring, right? But maybe I have to go do something. So I'm on a time crunch. It's like, I only have 10 minutes to make this breakfast. Like, hopefully I can like make it before I get out the door. Now you're like waiting to see if I can make the breakfast before I get out of the door. So it's like, I don't think you have to, be jumping out of a plane every day to like live an interesting life. I think everyone lives an interesting life because human life is interesting. And like your own life is very interesting just as someone else's is. It doesn't really matter what you do. It's like the way that you're able to like storytell it. Not everyone's going to want to storytell about their everyday life, but the people who do, I don't think that you have to get to the point where you're just doing the craziest things every day to make that interesting. If you just focus on the fundamentals of storytelling and like, where's the conflict? Where's the resolution? How can I introduce characters? What's interesting to me in my life? What do I care about? These little things, like me with the blue eggs. Like you would never think that would be like an interesting thing. But like I have, for people who are listening to this who don't know, there's this egg company that I buy eggs from, and they have blue and brown eggs in them. And I was like searching for a really long time to find a crate of all blues, because there's always a mixed match of like blue and brown. And finally I found one and I made a video about it and it got like over 1 million views. And like, that may seem like a boring thing, but if you storytell it in the right way, it becomes interesting. And like, that's the things that people care about, the little things, like the things that are seemingly boring can all of a sudden become interesting if you're a good storyteller. So I think the focus, if you're saying, I live a boring life, the focus can't be on the things that you do every day. It has to be on the story that you're telling. So to say, if you think that way, then you have to just think about story differently.
I like your conflict and resolution. I guess I've never really, as someone, like I said, that has felt like I don't really do anything or like, I work when I say that, I mean, because I work from home. But I love the conflict and resolution. And I, as a vlog watcher, know exactly what you're talking about as far as like, I'm out of the bev. Well, then now you go down the street and you grab the bev from your local deli, and now the bev's in play. Now your day can start because you have a bev or something like that. So,
and you have to think about conflict really broadly. Like, you're not going to face life or death conflict every day. But there's little things in your life that may happen every day that like, oh, you have to do this before you go do this. Or like, this thing is missing, so you have to go fulfill this thing before you can get started on the next thing. Or like, there's something blocking you in the way of doing this thing. Like, there's always those little things that happen throughout the day. And I think that's what's so interesting about Tim is like his conflict in his videos is almost built into his videos every day. It's like, how is this guy going to wake up the next day and keep doing this? You watch him do the whole day and you're like, there's no way he's going to do this tomorrow. And he does it every single day. And like, it's like a built-in conflict is like, how can he keep up with it and still keep the same amount of gratitude that he has for all the things in his life? So I think conflict is super important. And it's something that I think I only really discovered by doing the vlog every day is like, that's what's actually interesting is like conflict and resolution. And even if you watch like, if you think about any movie or TV show, you're introduced to characters in a certain world. Those characters run into conflict over the course of the story. They resolve that conflict. That's what the story is. And so like you have to have conflict somewhere along in the stories that you're telling, because then you have those resolutions to those conflicts, and then that creates a story. Or like Ozark is like a really good TV show. Have you watched it?
I have not.
Okay. Well, I won't spoil you the whole thing, but the premise of the show is they're in Chicago, something happens, and they have to move to the Ozarks. And the entire show, all they want to do is leave the Ozarks. And you spend the entire show waiting for them to get to the point where they finally resolve the conflict that happened on 5 minutes into the first episode, them leaving the Ozarks. And I'm going to spoil the ending for you, actually, because I have to do this to tell the whole story.
It's okay.
But literally 10 seconds left in the last episode is when you finally get to the resolution of it happened, they can leave the Ozark. And that's what keeps the whole show together, is this constant conflict in the background of, are they going to be able to leave the Ozark? A ton of things happen throughout that, and the story goes sideways and up and down, left and right. But there's always a conflict there of, are they going to be able to leave the Ozark? And I think in my videos, I'm trying to get to the point where I can have this conflict of like, conflict's not necessarily the right word for this, but like, is like, what is going to be of this if he continues to do it every day? Like, where is this going to eventually lead? And then I think that brings people back and they're watching it every day at that point, because then they're like, I want to see this conflict be resolved. I'm ranting a lot here.
God, but it's such good content. Cause I admire your ability to storytell so much. I'm just like, I even say to myself, I was on the way over here and I was like, gosh, like we're podcasting today. Like I should have told a Jack vlog day, like in reverse and done it from my perspective.
Oh, that would have been cool.
So it would have been so cool, but like
you could still do it.
I could still make it happen, yeah. But I'm just like, I would be thinking about how you do it instead of making it how I see it. And I think that that's putting your own personal spin onto what you're trying to achieve, not only for your page, but for who you are as a person is really important. But because I'm just such a visual person, I have like all 590 of your vlogs like in my head and how you achieve that, but like how I would achieve that is completely different.
Yeah.
But that's because we're all different. So that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. But
yeah. The way you do it would be, just as interesting. You just have to actually stick to it and commit to it and, do it.
Okay. So I got to transition one more time. Speaking of sharing, I brought my bev, and one of my favorite bevs today, because we got to wrap up.
Olipop.
Olipop. Yeah, I think I drank this in Charlotte a little bit, maybe like Whole Foods and stuff before I moved out here, but it's more readily available out here in LA.
Did it start in LA?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe it's a West Coast vibe. And Oakland, California, manufactured by Olipop.
There you
Love
go.
it. Fun fact. I don't want to butcher this statistic, but I'm pretty sure I saw a news outlet that this is now the most consumed root beer in like the US. Like they've already surpassed like all of other root beer sales, which is amazing. But they have some
just one of their flavors.
On just one of their flavors.
All root beer.
Yeah. So pretty fantastic. They came out with watermelon lime recently, and I cannot wait to taste that. I will be reviewing that whenever I get my hands on it. I think it's only at Sprouts right now, but it'll be in other locations. Other fantastic flavors I love is grapes in my top 5. Ginger lemon's really good. The orange tastes just like a creamsicle popsicle, so that's amazing. But yeah, they got it's just like they say, a new kind of soda. They got prebiotics, botanicals, and they have a lot of fiber which is really good for gut health.
Yeah.
So instead of all of the nasty stuff that's in the rest of the soda,
right?
It's got some good stuff inside of it.
When's Olipop going to sponsor you?
I hope soon. I hope, your Bev Lords come along. I hope that my Bev Lords come along, because I absolutely love Olipop. I drink it pretty readily. And so here we go. Oh, right to the microphone.
Yeah, just get you a little ASMR.
Cheers, my guy.
Cheers.
Well, I know it's been sitting out for 54 minutes, but...
Classic grape. It's good. It's very sweet. A lot sweeter than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Sparkling.
It just tastes cleaner.
Yeah, I like it.
Like, I feel like it literally came from, like, mine. It feels like it literally came, like, from a root beer. Like, but
I
the
don't think
grape
I've ever had it before.
But the grape, love that.
Yeah, I think it was my first one. Olipop, I'm a fan.
On the pod.
Yeah.
Dude, I appreciate you being on here, spelling out your experience.
It was
valuable. Dude, it was definitely valuable.
Okay, cool.
Like just the rant that you just gave about storytelling and conflict, like that was just like the kick in the butt that I feel like maybe I needed for my own content.
Cool.
Stuff like that. So I'm just happy that you spelled it out, because a lot of people, if I got value out of it as a content creator and as someone that's in this space, like I know that there's just going to be tons of people that get some good stuff out of this conversation. So
good.
Make sure, as I always say, make sure that you toss out where people can follow you.
Oh yes. TikTok is .jackcook. Instagram is _HJCook, not the best handle.
Okay.
So you can find me on Instagram there. And yeah, TikTok every day. I post them on Instagram every day as well. So either one of those.
We're excited to see what happens in the near future. It's been a pleasure watching you from, I'm going to say that I was somewhere around like the 200s.
Nice.
I was with you at 500 at the party that landed on the party.
On day 500.
So I might have to circle back and make sure that I am there for 1,000.
That'd be big.
And you also, I will have to say that over the last 50 minutes, you've had like this amazing sun just beaming in on you for
it's good light, isn't it?
It is fantastic
in the
light.
Kitchen.
Oh, I love this place. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah,
cheers one more time.
Cheers.